In this video, I interview Gabriel Bello, and in this interview, he goes deep into what's wrong with the modern worship team mentality and how we can fix it. We go through practical things. You might think at the onset of this video, when he starts talking about chords and stuff, you might think this is too crazy, but we give practical steps on where to start. So make sure you stick around, watch the whole video, and if you have any questions, ask them in the comments section below. I know Gabe will be reading some of the comments. I know I'll be reading some of the comments, and we'll make sure to get to those questions ASAP. He's been in several different bands, played in churches all across America, and has some amazing testimonies to share with us. But before we get into the testimonies, I wanted to release this video because this part of the interview has transformed the way I think about praise and worship. The revelations that he gives, just mind-blowing. And in fact, if you want to skip around maybe a little bit in the video, I'll leave timestamps in the description below, so all you have to do is type on them and it'll take you right to certain spots in the video. But I really recommend watching all the way through. Some of the illustrations that he gives, just, you can tell they're straight from God, all right? But if you're a praise and worship leader or you're on the praise and worship team, I think this video could change the way you think about praise and worship too. But thanks so much for joining us. My name is DiDio. I'm working on bringing praise and worship team tips and tools for teens on this channel. So if you're a teenager or if you know a teenager, go ahead and share it with them. Share it with other teenagers that you know, and subscribe to the channel to get a lot of other content just like this one. In fact, I've got a whole playlist full of interviews that I'll be adding videos to constantly. I'll link that up in the card right there or in the description below so you can check out both. But here's a question for you. What is your favorite praise and worship song right now? Let me know in the comments section below. And also check out the description below because there are links to all of Gabe's social media links, all of his downloadable content, all of it's in the description there below. So go ahead and check him out, give him some love for me. And can you do this for me? Go over to his latest YouTube video or whatever YouTube video of his that you want. Put in the comments section, Evan sent me. And that's all you put. Period, maybe one of those emojis, you know? Go ahead and do that. Again, link is in the description below, but let's go ahead and jump into the interview. Tell us about how we don't have any problem pulling out the secular music, but we're like no to hymns. I don't want to do older music.
Yeah, so I have this shtick. I think this might be I would not mind at all if this is what I was known for in my life. Of all the things I've accomplished, it feels like, hey, he's that guy that has that thing with, classic Christian music. So we have this mindset in American culture, because I can't really speak for anybody else. I've lived here my entire life, where outside of the church, in all aspects, nobody has this disdain for older music. If you talk to somebody that likes rap, you mention Tupac or Biggie or Jay-Z, because Jay-Z's been around for 20 years now. They don't thumb their nose at their first songs or their older songs. Or you talk to a rock musician, they're going to talk about Zeppelin, or they're going to talk about the Stones, they're going to talk about the Beatles. And this is all music that is 40, 50, this is ancient by today's standards, especially with how fast things are progressing in our world. In classical music, nobody's going to thumb their nose at Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. Yeah. Nobody. They are revered and tremendously respected, and everyone that does these art forms are taught this is where you start. Oh, you want to play classical music? You want to go, or you want to be in the London Philharmonic and play John Williams and play Star Wars. Well, guess where you're going to start? You're going to start over here with Mozart, or Bach at the piano. That's where you start. But in the church. Where do we start? We start with, hey, what came out last week? Yeah. Hey, what come out? What's the newest song? I'm not going to mention any churches' names because there's about 6 of them. Let's play this song that's been out for 2 months or 3 months. We don't even play. We have people playing today in church that don't even know what came out 10 years ago because it's like, oh, that's old. Yeah. Oh, that's old. And you try to play them a hymn or try to give them, I have done this. I have given musicians that, and this is a side issue, but they think of themselves as, I have arrived, I am a professional musician because I'm here playing, in a fog, and I'm on a big stage with a bunch of lights, and there's millions of dollars worth of tech around me, and I've arrived, and I give them a sheet for a hymn, and they're like, what? And they literally don't play. Yeah. They don't play, and they are leading. They're up there to lead, and they can't play Holy, 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 the traditional way, the original way, or great is thy faithfulness, or how great thou art. because they don't know what a sharp 5 is. I mean, literally, I've had musicians, what's the plus sign for? And you're leading?
Yeah.
I mean, that's, I appreciate somebody getting saved and wanting to tell everybody about Jesus, but you're not going to let them pastor a church.
Right.
There's probably some things that they need to learn first. And in the church, it's like, hey, here's a capo, here's how you do dotted eighth delay, here's a CD, or, download this album, from this ministry, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And we don't need to know Andre Crouch, we don't need to know Gaither, we don't need to know, we don't need to know Handel's Messiah, we don't need to know the Hallelujah Chorus, we don't need to know Rick Kua, or Anointed, or Carmen, or Sandy Patty, or Larnell Harris. I mean, all these amazing artists that literally created the Christian music industry, which one could debate whether or not that was a good or bad thing. But, I mean, there was a time where there was no Christian records. They were all independent until there was Integrity Records, and there was Hosanna, and there were all these Christian record companies that came about. And they all kind of went, well, we can do these built-in audiences with churches, so everything went praise and worship, and now you don't have hardly any original Christian music other than the praise and worship albums. Yeah. And now we have more musical literacy where musicians can't play anything outside of the things in this little area, and they don't know any of the material that doesn't live inside this area. So it's very backwards, and I'm passionate about trying to teach. As you know, I mean, I've taught you a ton of songs that, you go and play with other cats, and they're probably like, what's that? Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's this amazing story. It just happened within a week. I was driving home from an engagement with a couple musicians. Musician in the back fell asleep, and the musician next to me, hadn't been saved incredibly long. He's a younger guy, but maybe he's been saved 10 years, so wasn't raised in that environment. And I started talking to him about Carmen because he came out of a lot of demonic, he was involved in New Age and demonic oppression and possession. These things still occur at church. Yep. And I was talking to him about Carmen's Witch's Invitation, and he'd never heard it before. And he sat there, listened to that like it was the first time showing somebody The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, he's watching the video, and everything holds up. I mean, the special effects are, they're a little off by today's standards, but even then, it's still practical effects. That's a little aside. But he sat there and just hung on every word because he'd experienced so much in that world, and was just like, I can't believe I've never seen that, man. Holy cow, that was. And this guy, he's a professional musician. He tours all over, plays all over. Yeah. And I was thinking he might be like, man, that was cool. I mean, it was kind of cheesy, no, he was. And I know because it's sometimes you don't want to feel like you're getting too, I'm a little favored because I like this. But musically, that song is cool, and it so fits perfectly the story he tells. Yeah. But people say, well, it's how old is that? Well, it's not relevant. But in the world, they would still, if the church world were the world, if the church world were the secular world, they would march Carmen out on the Dove Awards every other year and say, hey, y'all, we're going to give him another award for being, especially with everything he's been through with cancer. I mean, I don't think the Dove Awards has had him on since the Lord has healed him of cancer. And he got diagnosed with cancer, beat every Kickstarter record, raising his funds to do a new album. He got healed. He did a new record, did a tour. Wow. And did anybody hear about it in the church? Did we see him on Christian television, or did we see him on the Dove Awards? Did these modern day ministries have him and say, hey, let's honor this guy, because if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have rappers. Yeah. He was the one that gave DC Talk their start, because the church world was like, no, rap is the devil's music. He said that's the same thing they said about rock and roll. Yep. And here we are having Petra, and we're going to Petra and Striper concerts. So if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have hardly any of these things going on. And we just, he's old, so it's not relevant. Right. And that's just, it's very sad, and I'm very passionate about correcting that wrong, because it's not the culture of what we believe in this book. Right. We honor those that are older, and not just because they're elders, but especially those that have gone and done these things before us. Yeah. I mean, look how Jews revere Moses. I could make you a very strong case that Carmen is the Moses of the Christian music industry.
There you go.
If not Carmen, Bill Gaither, and Andre Crouch.
Yeah.
That's your big three.
Yeah.
And then you have all the people that came with them and underneath them. I mean, don't get me started about Sandy Patty. My goodness.
Yeah. So Carmen, amazing artist. Which is Invitation. If you have not seen that music video, link is in the description, or I'll link it up in the card, either one. Go watch that video, guys, because that's just so good. It just makes you feel refreshed after watching something like that and thinking music can be that good in church.
Exactly.
We can add 20 more chords than what's in the chord chart. Now, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but most chord charts today are like 4 chords and a poem, you know? We need to put more work into this. Can you go ahead and talk a little bit about music theory and practical ways that we can start implementing some more chords that people don't think about?
Well, I think it has to start with what you're ingesting. So, especially if you're only want to listen to praise and worship music, fantastic. Go and listen to old school. Go get Ron Canoli's. Go download Ron Canoli's Lift Him Up.
Yeah.
It's available everywhere. You can watch the entire live concert on YouTube. The whole live recording is on YouTube. It's less than an hour long, and he had some of the world's best musicians. He had musicians that played with some of the world's top jazz artists.
Wow.
In that band, Abraham Laboriel. He's played with. Just look up Abraham Laboriel, bassist. Alex Acuna, one of the top percussionists on the planet still today.
Wow.
And that was the percussionist. Justo Almario, who played flutes and saxophones. I mean, just amazing musicians. So if you want to stretch, go listen to that. And then if you can't figure it out, they have you can get the chord charts.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're available online for free about anywhere. I'll send them to you. And if there's a song I haven't charted yet, I'll get it to you if you want to learn to get better. But I think it starts with what you're ingesting, what you're listening to, what you're absorbing.
Yeah.
If everything sounds the same, you're not going to get a different result listening to all the same stuff.
So immerse yourself in those types of songs with those chords.
Oh yeah,
and
listen to gospel, and I haven't even touched on gospel. I mean, like Andre Crouch is just he's kind of like in the middle. He was a bridge, but I mean, we haven't talked about Fred Hammond or John P. Key or Kirk Franklin.
Yep.
Go listen to a classic Fred Hammond or Kirk Franklin or John P. Key album.
Singers.
And that will change your life.
Yeah.
Gospel music, oh my goodness. It'll mess you up. Go get Wild Gospel 98.
Yeah.
Wild Gospel 98 or 99. And this is what music can be? This is music?
I didn't know this was possible.
Oh, it's unreal. It's absolutely unreal.
You hear about David dancing down the street, you think of him doing a little shuffle. No, he was. I mean, people mock Pentecostals, and a lot of Pentecostals can get a little bit on the weird side.
Oh yeah.
But that's okay, because they're praising God like David praised God, and that kind of music makes it easy. And you want to get the congregation into that kind of praise, that healing kind of praise. You start playing some songs like that, and it'll come out. Immerse yourself in that music. I'll link up that live album that you just mentioned in the YouTube card right there, so everyone watching can go and check that out. Start immersing, start listening to that kind of music, and start feeling the way they change chords, where they change chords. So now, whenever you get a 4-chord song, whenever you get a song that's 3 chords, like 1, 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe 2 if we're feeling lucky.
Oh no, you don't get a 2. You
No.
get it's a recipe that's become too predictable where there's even. And it's not just in the church world. We just have hit it way harder than the world. But it's a recipe called 64-15. Minor 6, major 4, major 1, major 5. Or it's 15-64.
Yeah.
Major 1, major 5, minor 6, minor 4. And you'd use either one of those 2 progressions.
Yeah.
And you just lather, rinse, repeat.
This isn't the blues.
No. Which, I mean, even the blues can be a little redundant, but there's even jazz variations on the blues, which jazz came out of blues. I wrote my first English paper on that, on the history of jazz, and it was basically that merging of the white classical and the black blues, and they came together and made jazz. So, and it was heavily blues influenced, of course, because, it was a lot of black musicians that were creating jazz. But as it progressed, I mean, they were taking that neoclassical and then the blues, and there you got all those variations and all those cool chords. I mean, that's what Miles Davis did, man. But Miles Davis and all those guys, Herbie Hancock, just what can music be? And they were listening to these classic composers, and once again, they had that foundation of these giants of music.
Yeah.
Like Stravinsky and all these late 20th century composers. So they would pull from these things like, man, that's, this Debussy tune has this really cool chord here, and then we don't really play that in the blues. How can I get to that chord?
Yeah.
Because it creates something sonically different. And that's what we have to realize. This is a physical property. This is science. We're in a chemistry lab, and we're using the same four ingredients. Okay, and we have the periodic table where we have hundreds of combinations we could use.
Yeah.
And here we are just using the same four ingredients, just salt, pepper, onions, and garlic. And we're not going to touch the turmeric. We're not going to use the rosemary. We're not, we're just chicken, salt, pepper, onion, garlic. And there's steak, and there's pork, if you're not kosher, and there's vegetables, and there's fruit, but we're just using just four main ingredients.
Yeah.
And we have all these things we can pull from.
That example's powerful. So whenever you get a chord chart that's like that, how do you spice it up?
It's difficult. Sometimes you can add to the fundamental difficulty I found, and you hear this when you hear gospel musicians cover CCM tunes. It just sounds like gospelized CCM. There's only so much you can do to chicken. It's going to be chicken until you take another ingredient and say, well, let's take a mushroom. It's a little bit different flavor. It's a little bit different texture. Or let's take a steak, or let's take fish. So there are things you can do to it to alter it. There's basically what we call passing chords in theory. So it's basically, okay, if we're going to go to, we're starting on the 6th. For instance, this morning I played Waymaker, the new Waymaker. And you can go to a, let's say I played it in A. So you play A, and then you go to E. Well, instead of going straight to the E, you can do a major B on the 3rd to the E.
Yeah.
And then you can also do the same thing. You can do a major D flat over F to get you to that minor F sharp. So there's little passing chords, but you can't really change the structure because the structure is tied to the melody. Yeah. Which is why so many people use that recipe, because it's familiar and that, and the melody structure is really easy to write, to create melodies to. But my thing is there's only so many melodies you can make. Yeah. Where in that little box, which is why we have artists suing each other left and right, because, well, this sounds like my song. Well, this sounds like my song. Yeah, it does. It's going to get to the point where they're going to everybody's going to have copyright over everything until they get creative and say, well, let's not use this same recipe for everything.
That's good. So, in case you didn't get what he said about the passing chords, you can actually slow the video down on YouTube. Click the 3 dots up there, click playback speed, and slow down, because I know for a lot of people that are just starting out, chords like that are like, wait, what? B over E? What does it mean? So,
and if they
want
to
experiment.
Yeah, if they want to hear the example, you can actually listen to the Pentecostals of Alexandria. They did a cover of Waymaker, and the pianist, he added some of those passing chords, because about 2-3 minutes into the song, it's the same progression. It's getting boring, so he starts adding, So he started adding, especially and they do something really cool in the That Is Who You Are section. That is who you are. Yeah. That would typically go to the 4. They went to the flat 7. So in A, they went to a G major 7. That is who you are. Do. That is who you are. Boo. That's is cool. Boom, boom. That is boom, boom, boom. Yes. That is who you do. Boom, 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 boom. Ba, 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 boom. That's a major 7 is right there. Ba, ba, boom. Down to F sharp minor. Da, da, D. And then that's the B over D sharp to E, boom. Yeah. So they really added. So that was a place where there's the music and it lifts the whole arrangement.
Moving more.
It goes somewhere, because until then it's just this. It's monotonous, and all you can do on that is volume. Yeah. You can make it louder and you can make it softer, which is why our arrangements have become so predictable. Yeah. We know when it's going to come down. We know when it's going to come up, because the chords don't change. Yeah. But if the chords change, you can keep people guessing. Yeah. And you can create a different atmosphere. Wow. Yeah. As opposed to just, everybody clap on. Everybody's gonna clap on the 4.
Yep.
And this is gonna be the song where it's gonna start, and then we're gonna all come up to a roar, and then it's gonna end. We all know that after the big bridge
chorus is
comes
quiet.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Comes down to the quiet chorus.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna come back up to the build to the big ending, and then
Fake
and then
ending.
exactly fake ending.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then you're gonna have the a cappella reprise, and then we're gonna come back with the build, and then the pastor's gonna come out and he's gonna lead it a little bit, and then the
back into it.
exactly. And the singers are gonna go away, and it's time for the offering.
Yeah, yeah, that's basically it. So start experimenting with these things. Start trying different notes on the keyboard or on the guitar or on whatever instrument you play. It might sound terrible, but if you're all alone, nobody's gonna hear it anyway, right? So just start practicing with that.